Hello, TNA fam. How's it going for today? We are back at the Impact Zone podcast again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And today I want to talk about TNA Turning Point, but not the pay-per-view. I want to talk about TNA's Turning Point. And that turning point is coming in more ways than one. I think that we have certainly pivoted in the last 2 years, certainly in the last 6 years or so, and we have been trending upward. So we have reached that turning point now, and it has been announced very recently. This upcoming episode of TNA Impact, which will be live, that there will be some major news. Now, there's a lot of speculation onto that. We knew that the new TV deal would be announced around Bound for Glory time. It hasn't been announced yet, although there have been several other, announcements made and whatnot. And I said before that they would have to announce a new TV deal if they were going to get one, a new streaming deal, anything else before the new year dawned. Because if you're going to transition from wherever you're, even if you're going to say, oh yes, it's still going to be here or whatever, if you're going to have your product on a new network, you need to let people go, oh, okay, shit, we better tune in on Thursdays to watch TNA on this new channel, because, that's how you get viewers. And, again, that's how do you get viewers? You start to market to the people that watch a regular show that is very similar, if not the same, as what, you're trying to present in that new time slot or around that new time slot or whatever else it is. So saying, again, having seen TNA on the network, CW network, TNA wrestlers, people have gotten fairly used to seeing TNA wrestlers on that network. So again, I feel like that's probably going to be the home, very likely, in the future, because again, I think we've found out that WWE NXT is moving to another network, or maybe it's one of the other networks, I'm not too sure. But again, whatever it is, they have seen TNA on that network. They have seen TNA on, mainstream WWE programming, perhaps not mainstream WWE TV as such, like Raw and SmackDown per se. And I would say, again, I don't want to nail a hammer into their head, but WWE has been going downhill a little bit in the last few years. And I think at a certain point, once, I think I've already said this, but I think we're trying to ride the coattails for right now. And that's okay. It's okay to ride the coattails for a little while just to get to a certain position, I feel like. That's fine. So if TNA gets this new TV contract and they get into a good position where they're at in the next few months or whatever it is, that's all we need. That, and as soon as that's done, we can say, okay, we'll still be cordial with you, WWE, and if you want some of our talent, or if you want to send us some of your talent or whatever, in the next year, we're still open for that. But for the most part, hey, we're doing our own thing for the most part. I think that's where we need to be, especially after this next year. If you say, oh, for another year, we're going to have some interesting partnerships or some interesting stuff's going to be going on or whatever, cool. Okay, great. But after that, I feel like it starts becoming okay, every time we turn around and we say, hey, we're coming to the basically the forefront, maybe, they really wanted Nick Nemeth or whatever, I don't know, but for the most part, we've been coming to the forefront with our best talent. And you might not think that, again, our best talent are even worth being your C grade talent or your D grade talent or whatever you want to say, but that's our best talent, again. So, and we've let you have free reign over anyone that you've wanted to and chosen to turn up, So, and yet you guys continue just to send us your D level, C level talent for the most part. Yes, you've sent us some of your, sort of B level talent or whatever here and there, but realistically, you're trying to elevate those talent into, you know, sort of that level of talent, that B grade level of talent that will be on the main roster soon, and then eventually into more A grade talent later on. I'm assuming, but yes. So again, that is what it is. If that's all they can afford to sort of let out, okay, well, whatever. But it's not really a fair trade. And yes, you could say, oh well, we're getting bigger TV numbers than what we have, but we really haven't, or at least more interest, more subscriptions to the TNA Plus. Even here and there, more casual appeal because people are going, oh, okay, TNA's here, maybe I'll check it out here or there, or I've heard of Jordan Grace, or I've heard of this person or that person, or whatever. More so now than, or Joe Hendry or whoever's more so now. So, again, like, you've got to be drawing the people in, and that's how you get, people to be tuning in, is by, we've got to try to hype this up. We've got to try to, get to that next stage. We've got to, hopefully, as I say, this is the turning point. We've got to see that happen. So, and the main reason is a sort of, we've covered this, that I can say stuff about, this moment and this time period right now is because, well, in some ways, like, I have the ability to, like, we've talked about it for a long time, but they need to, like, and I've said it before, but they need to hit the home run, so to speak. They need to knock it out of the park, so to speak, at this point. That's what they need to do. I'm assuming that the deal is, in fact, basically done at this point. So now they just need to announce it, and then they need to start advertising for it. So that's where I think we're at right now. And I hope that the deal is going to be really good. We might still have a few lean months ahead. We don't know. A lot of contracts have been up in the air. But hopefully, like, it can't be a time period much like ECW at the end, or well, throughout its tenure, and it can't be like the time period, the dark time period of TNA. Like, you need to pay these people. So, especially since they're the ones risking their bodies and risking their necks. Asby Elliott can no longer wrestle, apparently. So again, that should be, things that are in the forefront of your mind to say, well, look, this person can't even wrestle anymore, but, and that only just happened in the last few months or whatever it was. So the idea that, again, it's just, fake or whatever else, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but still, people get legit hurt. It's a real combat sport. And, so it's not just, fake stuff. It might be a scripted show, but these are real people with real, lives and real injuries and, having to make real sacrifices and whatnot to entertain people. And they have to be their own coordinators, their own stunt doubles, that all of that stuff. So again, even if it is short term for now, and like I said before, with the whole situation with the Hardys holding the titles, and it's like, well, they're probably going to WWE. Well, maybe they are, and maybe that'll be soon, and whatnot. But again, if you've got a reasonable reason for them to not hold those titles, which is, in my opinion, where you're at, saying, hey, you guys can't, you guys could take those titles with you, but, we can't, then be saying, hey, to WWE, we need them back, or we need them over here, or whatever. We're not going through all these negotiations and whatnot with WWE again with another set of people, just because we happen to have them on our contracts or whatever. We shouldn't have to keep going back and forth with things like this. Like, at a certain point, they're yours. That's cool with us. We don't care. That's fine. But we just need our titles, at the end of the day. Those are ours, And that's business. Like, if you're going to use them and you're going to let us use them, okay, cool, all right. But other than that, which exactly as I was going to say, I don't think that that's going to happen. But, like, if you are, it's in my opinion, it's very unlikely. But if you are going to, co-opt them, I guess is the best way to put it, then at a certain point, we still need to move past them, because at a certain point, they're still going to have to retire. They're still going to have to move on, and we have to move on from them, because, we cannot rely on them forever. We know this, and this is where we're at. We respect them, but we know, hey, they have given everything that they can for us, so, it is time for us to say, hey, thank you so much, but hopefully we will, have you guys in the Hall of Fame, or we can, show you some respect later down the road. But, for now, this is not, where we're at. We're not at the point of, sailing that ship, I suppose, so to speak. But again, this is it. Now, and like I've said before, because I'm not in the US, and I think there's a lot of issues right now in the US. I keep going back to it, but like, that is still like one of the most important things, like getting either onto Netflix, onto something, onto a generally accessible streaming platform, getting onto a very general accessible TV network. I know not everyone still has the ability to get NXT, but like over 1 million people do, so I'm pretty sure TNA will do fine on a very similar network, if not the same one. So I feel like the audience that does watch what wrestling is on that channel has kind of clicked into a few of the people that are kind of in TNA and gotten to see Moose, gotten to see Mike Santana, gotten to see a bunch of the different wrestlers that are on that brand over the last year or so, or what have you. Even if they perhaps have known about them or heard about them or what have you, or seen them or what have you, whatever. Some of the more casual people that watch that, I know it's not as casual whatnot as the main roster, but still there are casual people that watch it and watch the specials and the pay-per-views and whatever. And that's something that I thought of before as well. I think like you could almost take the same model as what NXT is kind of doing. I think like once a month you can have a special TV special. Instead of having these specials that are on a Saturday or a Sunday, have these specials be on a Tuesday, on a Thursday, or on a, just have it be a special episode of TNA Impact. Now it's, the Gold Rush tournament or whatever it is, or it's Sacrifice, or it's whatever it is. It's the same thing, but, a little bit different. You're maybe taking one more week away from, or one more set of, tapings or broadcasts away, but I think that means that, you've got to really plan it more out, and maybe you've got to have, I don't know, what would you say, less time away from, the direct contact with what you were just doing. So if you were saying last week or whatever it was, we were doing this, and the week before we were doing that, and da 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 da, So now we're on the pay-per-view week or whatever it was. And what are our plans next week? Because we've got a TV episode in another week. So instead of saying, oh well, we've got the pay-per-view this weekend, whatever, or saying, hey, we're gonna tape 4 or 5 episodes or whatever it is, 3 episodes or whatever it is, and then we're gonna go ahead and meet up again in a month. And then it's like, oh, what's been going on? Oh, we've forgotten everything that happened in this last month or whatever it is, except for like the people that we've seen like doing media and doing stuff and whatever else. We've forgotten everything else that happened on TV. And like, some ways it is good to see, hey, who's actually pulling their finger out and saying, hey, all right, I'm going to go to these towns, or, and some of the things is the only way that you can like get people excited about you or interested in you is that level of push that says, okay, we'll give you a chance near the top. People start going, oh, now we want to know more, because now, or we want to hear from you more, or we want to talk to you more, because now you're actually in programs, and now it looks like you're building to a world title picture, like with this person or what have you. Not like, oh, they're just some mid-card guy, or they're just some effective job guy, so whatever, we don't really care, they're there and they're doing whatever, so why would we be interested? So, but yeah, like if you have, but it's also the opposite effect of like they're intertwined, like the amount of interest that the audience already has translates into more success. The more success you have, the more audience interest there is, and it's like that feedback loop. The more interest and the more exposure you kind of get up until a certain point, the more interest there kind of is, as long as you can keep that thing fresh, and people will be entertained and be interested. And I get, again, the saying, oh, well, everyone has ADHD now, so you're saying, oh, well, we should book for the ADHD crowd. Even I'm in the ADHD crowd, technically, but still, like, I can sit back and watch it, like, I can sit back and enjoy it and say, okay, where are they going this month? Where are they going in 6 months? Where are they going in a year? And start trying to work it out, or what have you. And that's cool. And it's fine. Like I said, I don't care if I'm right or wrong, but it's just like, okay, all right. Now let's think. What's the logic here? What's going on there? Whatever. But yeah, no, I think that, again, we're at that point, and I think we will only know the fruits of said labor or what have you when we start seeing, well, once the transitions actually happened. I don't think that even when the announcement comes and whatnot, that we will know how well TNA will do in that space. And it also just depends on everything that you put into it. And I do think that, again, the best thing that you can do is give people something to tune into every single week. Because that's how you get eyes and whatnot, and people to pay for your pay-per-views, and people to, pay to come to the arenas and that sort of thing. You've got to give them something to see. Like, what's your story? Who's the hero that everyone wants to see get crowned? Kind of thing. Or who's the bad villain that everyone wants to see get crushed? Kind of thing. That's kind of the thing that drives people to these things. It's the idea of seeing, am I going to get to see this person, win this belt or whatever, does it feel like they're actually trying to, put this person in a position, of, they might be the next guy or the next gal or whatever, so yeah, that's where I'm at with it. So, like I said, I don't know enough about the US broadcasting and distribution and stuff like that, but if you get something, I know it's probably not going to be Netflix, but something like Netflix, like Hulu, I think that what's AEW is on HBO Max. I can't remember what that is, what that one is on, but like there's Hulu, there's so many other like things. Like again, so and you can get the app through all these different things, but again, that doesn't really help. It needs to the show itself needs to be broadcast on that. It needs to actually be on the service. And yes, you can get it through Fightful or Triller TV or whatever. But still, you need to be able to get, this thing out to everyone who doesn't know what that is or, what have you. So you need to get it to the general audience. So we will see. So I might have to ask some people who know a bit more about it once it's actually announced, like I said. And if it's on the same network as NXT or what have you, then obviously, like I said, still might need to ask people and be like, how can we attract people? We've got, and I'm assuming it's going to only start next year, and whatnot. So again, but obviously, but still, because even if it starts next month, like, okay, I don't care, but that's fine. But in my opinion, it would start next year. But the advertising for such has to be, still there either way, of saying, even if it's announced and saying, oh, yes, we're going to debut next week or whatever it is. Yeah. And that's also for the pay-per-view. Like, I guess, like, the pay-per-view also has something for it. But then again, you might be saying, oh, well, it's all the stuff for the pay-per-view. So, I don't know. So it's really tough for me to sort of see that you're gonna have, I don't know, something else. I don't know. Like, yeah, I just don't see what you're gonna do. But that way, and again, like, that's what I mean. Like, maybe you have so much time dedicated to, like, building things up for the pay-per-view that it's like, oh, well, this other news or whatever is not going to get there, so we can only but wait to hear what that is and whatnot. So I'm going to have to do a video, at least a quick predictions, next week when they have the matches announced, and a reaction. I think I've already said this sort of stuff of saying, it's going to be a quick sort of thing, very quick turnaround of these are the predictions, or this is what they've announced, and here's my predictions. Actually, honestly, I probably don't have much predictions. I think I already said this because, like, at this point, like, with 1 week or 1 day turnaround or whatever it is, like, I think there's only like 2 matches or something, like, or 2 segments maybe announced. So, and again, I feel like you're probably just going to have everything stay the same because you haven't built anything for the last month. So there's nothing for anyone to really sink their teeth into believing. So, like, you could do another NXT TNA show and finally actually have some NXT stars on TNA instead of the other way around every friggin' time, where it's like the TNA stars are always going over there. Like, there's only been like a handful of times where it's been like, here's a bunch of NXT, well, not even a bunch, so there's only a couple of NXT people coming from NXT over to TNA. You know, there hasn't really been that many times that many people, like, I think the most at one time was like Fatal Influence. That was like 3 plus like Trick. So that was like 4. Maybe they had over Femi and Trick and whatnot at one point, but like that was still just like 2 people. So like it wasn't really Al at one time. Though maybe like JC was there around that time, so you could argue that it was like 4 or 5. So that's like the most that they've ever kind of sent over at one time or around one time. So yeah, like, and you know, you've had heaps of people from TNA. You've almost had the whole friggin' locker room. In fact, basically the whole friggin' locker room on their TV show in one episode. So it's like, yeah, what's going on there? You know, type thing in some ways, but whatever. But yeah, so I'm like, whatever is happening at Turning Point, I feel like nothing is happening. I think that the main thing that I want to talk about with predictions, not so much that like these people are going to retain or these people are going to win, but it's like, well, what's going on from there? Where are we going from here? Not just, oh yeah, this is what's going to happen, but why are we doing this? How are we forming something else, or you know, whatever. That'll be the interest for me. And maybe we won't really be able to detect that until like the tapings afterwards or what have you. But you know, hopefully we can. That way we can at least start saying, okay, this is the direction we're going in. Okay, cool. You know, let's start going in that direction. Let's see where this leads. Let's see how we go. Hopefully this all works out. So, but yeah, guys. I think I said before, in many ways it is very interesting. You know, sort of time here in TNA, because it's just so much like thought into what the frick can they do with like only a day turnaround for this pay-per-view or whatever. But then again, it's really boring because it's like, man, nothing's happening, and they haven't announced anything. So obviously nothing's really happening, because like even with a month's build, you probably assume nothing's really happening, but at least you get that month to build things and say, okay, come on, we've got to make people believe that something's going to happen, even though it's not going to happen. You know, like, that's what you've got to do. You've got to trick people into thinking, oh shit, such and such is going to win this title somehow, you know, which makes no freaking sense. But, you know, you've got to convince people that it's going to happen, you know, so that, you know, people are drawn in. But again, as I've said a few times, maybe they've seen, hey, well, we always get the same numbers no matter what we do. So on the more minor pay-per-views, so you know what, we don't care, you know. So and this is another experiment or whatever, or this is just because, you know, something else, rah. I don't know. So hoping for the best. We will have to wait and see, as I said. So I will try to keep my eyes on this, but I wanted to come on again and sort of talk about the progress that we've made, the milestones that we've met, because it is important. Like, you know, and it is, you know, again, TNA, like I said before, TNA needs to be out in that space of being a competitor to WWE, and that's why I was saying, like, we can only rely on WWE for so much, and we really shouldn't rely on them for hardly anything, because they're out for their own interests, you know, like, at the end of the day, which is, you know, that's fine if we have an aligned interest, which is, you know, the business as a whole or whatever. And I think that they should realize, hey, you know, the thing was, we were better when there was WCW. You know, we were better when we had competition, because there was that, oh shit, you know, what are we gonna do? We've got to draw the people in, you know, and we've got to make people feel like, oh, you know, our show is the shit. We've got to watch this, you know. We've got to turn up, you know. We've got to we've got to see Stone Cold. We've got to see The Rock, you know, all this, da da da, whatever, you know. So that's what you've got to create now. That buzz. Same for TNA. Like, you've got to create that buzz somehow. You know, even if you're losing Joe Hendry, even if you're losing the Hardys, even all this other stuff, what have you. It's like, yes, but still you need to pull your finger out and say, okay, how else do we create the buzz that we need to, you know, get people to, you know, come to these things? And again, keeping it cheap, keeping it family friendly and affordable is one thing, because that's one thing that WWE hasn't done. They haven't kept it as affordable as what it was. And yes, you've still got to charge people for tickets. You can't be giving away tickets, but, you know, you've got to be, you know, just not charging hundreds and thousands of dollars. Yes, for your bigger events or for your more premium seats or whatever, yes, you can charge more, but still you've got to keep it, you know, to a certain extent, so that people feel like, oh yeah, this is a good deal. Plus I'm getting this, plus I'm getting that, plus I'm getting, you know, signings and da-da-da-da or whatever, and a chair and this and that and whatever else it is. So that it's like, no, I'm getting some stuff for this, you know, for this money, not just, oh, well, I'm here in the front row and there's some good seats, I guess. You know, whatever. But yeah, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this one, and I hope you guys will join me again in another one.